Hi, welcome back to another web clip. Today, I thought I'd do something really different and start to teach tarot. So, tarot, like astrology, is considered one of the gold and silver keys of empowerment. Anybody can read the cards. There's a real misconception out there that you have to be a psychic to read the cards. No, you don't. I'm not saying that if you learn to read the cards, you won't be more intuitive or more aware. That is definitely going to be a result of working with the cards, but you don't have to be a psychic to start. There are techniques and tools that we can learn that can teach everybody to read the cards for themselves. So as I begin this section, let's talk about that for a moment. There are a lot of readers out there that don't believe it's a good idea to either read for yourself or that people can read for themselves. And I'm not going to say as a reader that there aren't those times when you could be deceived through looking at the cards because you see something you want to see. I'm not saying that couldn't happen, but what I'm saying is that it's less likely to happen if you develop a good relationship with the cards. They have a no-nonsense business way of talking. And ultimately, I think that it's a great way to learn. The most subtle way to learn anything is to learn it through yourself. So one of the first techniques that I would like for everyone who's watching this video to do would be to get a deck of cards, look at each card, really look at it. But more importantly, start a practice where you pull a card a day. Maybe even writing down in a journal any intuitions or insights that came as a result of that card. Because that's a beginning of developing a dialogue between yourself and the cards. And in building that dialogue, you're building a vocabulary. With the vocabulary, you can then build stories. As you build confidence, if you so choose, you could even do it for other people. But the purpose of our video is not so much that I go out there and teach a bunch of other people to read cards, because like every other profession, just because you can do it doesn't mean it'll be a great job. As a matter of fact, as a teacher, I've learned that I can successfully teach people to read for themselves, and I can even successfully have them read for others. But very often, reading for others is a very scary proposition. And as I said, like any job, some things are just not for everybody. But everybody can gain something through the experience of reading the cards for themselves. Now, as we get into our tarot experience, one of the things that you might realize even already is that different people read differently. There are those card readers that won't let you touch their deck because they only read right side up cards and they don't want the card order messed up. There are readers that are the opposite. They want you to touch the cards. There are readers that don't care one way or the other. There are readers that will only read right side up cards and other readers that will read both directions. There are readers that are very experimental and will read lots of cards. And then there's those readers that will only read the Celtic Cross with the ladder, which is a total of 10 cards. That doesn't make or break the reader. It doesn't mean that one reader, because a reader reads all of the cards, that they're better than a reader who doesn't. Readers are like psychologists or like friends. We really almost need to be more discerning about who we choose to be our readers. And that should be based more in reliability and relationship, professionalism, and other things, accuracy, but things related to the card reading, not exactly the style of the card reading. With that said, there will be people who will go through this series of web clips, at least I'm hoping that you will, and you might notice that you think a little differently about a card, like, well, that's not quite how I was taught. That's okay. Believe me, once you start reading for yourself, you pick up your own style. The other factor is that I am an astrologer, and I was an astrologer first. So as a tarot reader, and even as I was learning tarot, I did it as an astrologer would because I was already an astrologer. At the time when I was, I believe, 20, I took a course. And I had the good fortune of taking this course along with people who come from other disciplines. In other words, they weren't all astrologers learning tarot. Some of them came from practical magic. And one of the things that we noticed was the order in which we wanted to look at justice and strength, or even the way we wanted to interpret them. I'm not even going to go into those numbers. I'm going to let you make the decisions because certain decks do transpose those two. To me, it doesn't make a difference as a reader. I've been doing it too long, but it might to you. Just because you see that maybe I'm going one direction doesn't mean that you should stop and that I would never, that, my discipline might affect your learning. I've never found that to be true in all of my years, both as a teacher and as a student. So before I go on, I'd like to talk about some of my reference material. First of all, I'd like to push my own website, divinationcounselingservice.org. In case, because I don't talk about it often enough, and not everybody gets this from my website, my name is Colleen Schmidt. Divination Counseling Service is my company and has been since '94. I've been around a while. divinationcounselingservice.org is the website, and on it you'll find that I have written articles on every single major arcana card. I did these articles based on my own tarot journal that I created when I was like 20, when I meditated on each card and then wrote about it. So some of the material came from that, plus other things because I'm now older, and those pages, though they may be older, are still valid. Okay. With that said, there are two other people I want to talk about today. Eileen Conley, who does a whole series on the tarot, from apprentice to master. She has a whole series. She's more of what I refer to as a classic tarot reader. And then there is Gail Fairfield. Gail Fairfield is the author of Choice-Centered Tarot, and she does a marvelous job of looking at the tarot as something, again, that you build up your own work. So not so classical. I think that these two women together create a really well-rounded way to begin to look at tarot if you're interested in studying it. Now, with all of that said, the real purpose of what I wanted to do today as an introduction is to introduce a lay, which I like to do at every single time that I do a clip. I would hope to be able to leave it with a lay. We'll see what happens. So this is the first lay I'm going to work with. And you notice I talk about the Celtic Cross, okay? The Celtic Cross, for me, is simply the circle with the cross in the middle. The other part is the ladder. So for our purposes, I want to begin in a way that we're not overwhelming anybody who might be just beginning, that we're starting with the proper number of cards to create a story but not overwhelm any new students. As a reader professionally, I can tell you I read every card in the deck, and I start with a lay called a manala. I don't know if I'll get far enough to show the basic manala, but then I would create what's called flowers and finish off the whole deck. I've been doing this for a really long time, and to teach that right away would be incredibly overwhelming to anyone who's, first of all, not interested in reading for other people. They just want to learn for themselves, and they're new. They can get so easily overwhelmed. So I wanted to start with a classic, traditional Celtic Cross that does not have a ladder. The ladder would be on the side with the 6. We've seen that before. It's probably one of the most common lays used by tarot readers today, at least that I've noticed when I'm out there looking. Now, the lay we're looking at, the Celtic Cross, very traditional. except for how I'm going to go about getting my significator. See my number 1 card in the middle? That card, according to Eileen Conley and others who come from the classical school, you could pick that out of the deck yourself. You could take whatever card you think most speaks to that. As a reader, I don't. I like for the deck to tell me, because that way I can see whether or not the deck and I are on the same page. It's a way that I can test my shuffling. So I let the deck pick it. What crosses it is the number 2 position. It's always about the lesson or the cross to bear. So I love that statement, cross to bear, because that's very appropriate when you're reading if you can think along those terms. And we'll have an example in the next few minutes. Number 3, there at the bottom, is the foundation. It's where you're coming. It's the foundation of the question. Okay, where you're coming from, but also I like to say how you're being affected, because I have a saying when I read. I say it a lot. It's called state of mind. There's specific cards in there that just speak to me that I know are referring to state of mind. In this lay, I look at number 4 as being the card that's most likely to speak to that point about the question, peace of mind, or state of mind, I'm sorry. The number 5 position at the top is what crowns your situation. That's what crowns it, the highlight of it, the value of it, if you will. And then number 6 over here, that number 6, that in this particular reading can be our outcome, because it is the direction that you're headed. So it is your outcome, in a sense. So I thought it would be really fun to pull out cards just as an example so that we could sort of pull a story together. And I really didn't know what they'd show me. So I am going to, hopefully nobody's getting dizzy, but let's look at this lay, okay? Let's get my notes out of there. Let's look at the lay, all right? So here's our lay. We got 6 cards. And our first card, our significator, and this is why I let the deck do it, because as soon as that card came out, I knew it was talking about me doing this reading. So it's me. It's a Queen of Pentacles, right side up. So it's a favorable situation. At least the cards are looking on me favorably. Apparently I'm not doing something out of my realm, which obviously I'm not. And what crosses that is the Ace of Pentacles. So all that we know from that, which is again an easy solution, or as easy to figure out, is this is a new project. These tarots, this tarot web clip is new. The card beneath, the card that is our foundation, is an upside down card, and I do read upside down. And this card, right off of Eileen Conley, represents foundations laid do not bring desired results. So what that means is that something about our situation, where we're coming from, is the result of, in this case, they're wands. And I'll get into the suits in another web clip probably next week. Or this one is just telling us that the connections, I say material, but it's the connections, just not there. And then here, peace of mind, no, state of mind. I feel like I'm running in place, I'm not getting anywhere. So it's talking about me. And the reason why is because I ran out of stuff I wanted to talk about related to astrology. I just was racking my brains trying to figure out. And I realized, what's the crown of this situation? It's the moon. I love that it's the moon, because that's telling us we're working on intuition. And that's true of both subjects, astrology and tarot, that the reason I do these web clips is to empower people and educate them on these tools. Our outcome card was very telling, was another factor in why I decided to keep these cards and hold on to them. The King of Pentacles can be read many ways. You can make it as a business thing that doesn't go through. We could look at it as a man, but if it's a man, we're talking about somebody who might spend more money than they have. They might be money-oriented. They could be a philanderer, so that's a guy that maybe cheats on or has many girlfriends, you know. So we get a sense of somebody who maybe isn't honest. Well, you know what's funny about these cards? They're not real. The reading is not real. It's an example. How perfect is that? So today, experiment went swimmingly. And I thank you all for joining me. And I hope that you'll join me once again when I do another clip on tarot. As always, if you have any questions, please contact me at divinationcounselingservice.org or check out Colleen Schmidt in the YouTube channels for more information on either astrology or tarot. Take care, happy readings, and until next time.